Amazon, 10,000 workers. Facebook, otherwise also known as Meta now, 11,000 workers. And also Twitter, 3.7 thousand workers, and being a much smaller company, specifically about 50% of its workforce. This is pretty much the number of people that have now actually been officially announced to be laid off over the next couple of weeks or months even, depending on just the specific company. But the big idea right now is that almost every single major tech company is starting to announce layoffs, or have actually already started to announce their layoffs, or is actually already starting the actual layoff process right now as we're currently speaking right now in the present day. You know, all of these companies are very, very big, once believed to be giant tech companies that were believed to be indestructible or just, you know, all one of a kind. FANG companies, Facebook, as mentioned, Amazon, but even things like Salesforce, Shopify, expected, not yet, but expected Google, and many, many other tech companies, totaling probably over 100,000 tech workers or workers in the tech industry, now expected to lose their jobs and end up unemployed sometime in the very, very near future. So this is very, very brutal. So in today's video, what I really want to talk about is really explaining the situation to why this is happening, and probably also about why this is important to us. Because the big idea is that if you are someone that works at a company which is employed right now, more or less, because there are some people self-employed, but if you happen to be someone that's working at a company right now of some kind, then this is going to be absolutely important, because it means that our jobs are potentially going to be on the line. Now, if you are someone that's currently unemployed, this is still absolutely also pretty relevant and important, because it shows you that if you're currently struggling to find a job, we did make a couple of videos talking about the job hunt, which I'm going to put at the very, very end screen. But the big idea is that if you're struggling with that, is to understand that it's understandable and that the situation is just not in our favor right now. But of course, all of this stuff we are going to talk about in today's video. So let's get started. So real fast, maybe before we begin, just remember to smash the like button if you guys hopefully can show some support for this video. Or as always, you guys can watch to the end to decide, but hopefully you guys will enjoy this, or otherwise feel free to leave a suggestion for improvements. Consider subscribing and hitting the bell for similar videos like this. And of course, as always, feel free to leave a comment, questions, thoughts about honestly just really anything. So with that being said, now let's get this video started. So the first reason why a lot of these layoffs are really currently happening right now is really because of everything related to the pandemic. We've already basically talked so much about the pandemic, about how it's been ruining so many different things, but it's interesting because now that we are starting to see reopenings, it's also one of the reasons why many tech companies are also now struggling, or certainly not thriving as they once were. They're still thriving, they're not struggling that hard, but they're not thriving as they once were believed to be, and you know, as they once did during the pandemic. The big idea is that during the pandemic, while it is true that many businesses, companies, and everything sadly went through a lot of difficulties, tech was actually one industry that actually thrived very, very well. The big idea is that during that time period, there were a lot of tech companies that basically saw, as people were kind of staying inside all day, they weren't really going outside, people used technology as a way to improve their lives. You know, people were staying inside. That's why many companies like Zoom really prospered and thrived. People were ordering more packages instead of going out to shop. That's why Amazon was doing really, really well at that time. People were watching Netflix, people were staying at home, they were learning video editing, so Adobe, they were learning tech, so Microsoft, all sorts of different things that were really going on. They were on their cell phones more often, so, you know, all of the cell phone companies like Apple, all of that stuff was really, really thriving during that time period. But now, because we are starting to see a lot of things start to reopen again, what this really, really means is that the need for technology is still really strong, but it's just not as thriving as it really once was, you know, back then during the pandemic. So because of that reason, it also means that many tech companies now are also struggling with maybe the second reason why this is happening, which is related to profits. Because if you guys have been following the stock market, but even if you guys have not been following the stock market, if you guys look at the stock market, but just specifically the graphs that have been going on, the biggest idea is that right now, anyone that's followed stocks, or at this point is watching this video, can hopefully know is that many tech companies they're not doing very, very well. In fact, if anything, the stock market right now in the world of tech is actually struggling really, 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 really particularly hard. You guys have seen probably many, many graphs of like what's been going on with all of the, even companies like the FANG companies. Facebook has basically decimated, Amazon is going down, Google is going down, smaller tech companies have been hit very particularly hard. All of the smaller companies like Peloton, Pinterest, Etsy, all of those much smaller ones. So if the big tech companies are struggling and now the small tech companies are struggling as well, you can only imagine where this is going. So the big idea is that many, many people that work in the tech industry, their net worth, a very huge percentage of it, is really tied to stocks. So if the stock market right now is struggling and going deep down, it also means that for a lot of those people, their net worth is also going down very drastically as well. So when you start to see a lot of falling profits, when you start to see balance sheets that are not very, very particularly thriving as they once were, it's going to leave a lot of reasons for people to start to kind of increase layoffs and cause everything that's happening. As an example is like, again, going back is that with Amazon, they saw a massive increase in the number of packages that they were shipping during the height of the pandemic. But because of that reason, in order to keep up with how much work was going on, they had to physically hire new workers to be able to pack the actual packages. Even though they use machines, there are still workers that need to run the machines inside of their factories, inside of their fulfillment centers, inside of everything that they do. They needed to hire a lot of people, and this is just one example. But when now you are starting to see a decrease in the number of deliveries, a decrease in the number of orders, because people are now able to go out more, they're able to shop outdoors, they're able to do a lot of things, it means that the need for workers isn't going to be high as they once were. So as a result, from a combination of the pandemic and because of the falling profits and everything that has been going on, that's why we are now starting to see a ton of massive layoffs starting to really, really happen right now as we're currently speaking. And then probably the final reason why we are starting to see a lot of layoffs go on right now, and this is probably one of the most important reasons, if anything, is, or if not even potentially the most important reason, is because of everything related to the recession. The recession, and that's something that we've been covering all day. Subscribe if you guys are brand new here, because we've been covering so many videos talking about the recession lately. But the big idea is that as interest rates are really going up, it's starting to lead to a lot of difficulties in business as well. Why is this the case is that because many companies are actually in a lot of debt right now, or are operating off of loans, because a lot of times in order to start a company, you have to take out a loan so that you can be able to fund the capital in order to help raise up money to use to create the business that you're currently creating or running. So if interest rates are starting to increase, what this also means is two sides. The first side is that it means that it's going to be a lot harder to be able to pay back your loans because of that reason. The second side really is that it also means that because it's going to be much harder to pay back loans because of the increase in interest rates and everything, it also means that there's going to be a lot of more difficulties because it's going to impact the profit. One of the reasons why there's so many businesses that sometimes struggle is not necessarily because they're not able to make money per se, but it's because their expense is so high that when they factor in the actual profit margin is so low that's the reason why it's so difficult to make money off of certain business models if the expense is basically almost as high as, and this is a very realistic representation of what many businesses go through. And so by having increasing interest rates, what this means is that it's going to impact the profit margins, which means that companies, they're not going to make as much money. And that's going to be a lot more difficult to make it so that they can survive. Added to that, because there's also a lot of fears of the recession coming up, this is also going to be a huge, massive impact. And that's something that actually Mark Zuckerberg talked a lot about, why he's doing these layoffs at Facebook right now, or / Meta, is really exactly because of that reason. Because although it is true that the recession in some of their eyes is not necessarily here yet right now at this time, they anticipate that it's going to come very, very soon. So because of that reason, instead of trying to just wait it out and then do the layoffs later, a lot of them are trying to be, I guess, strategic in their sense, in their, in their views about what they're really trying to do is because keep in mind is that right now at this time, more than 90% of the major CEOs in our world, or certainly of our big tech companies, they're very bearish. They anticipate that, stocks might potentially fall further. They anticipate a recession is coming. They're very, very bearish about the markets and everything that's going on right now. So because of that reason, it also means that with so many different companies that are struggling right now, it's going to lead to a lot of the layoffs that we are currently see. In other words, the bottom line is that they're laying off a lot of workers to prepare for the recession that's going to potentially come. And that's one of the biggest things, is that they just want to prepare for it. And I think that's the most important thing to take out of this. So what exactly is the significance of what this actually means for us? Is that it pretty much just means that if you are someone that's currently employed, it's probably going to be very particularly important to really be able to save up money, manage your expense, and really be able to kind of just do your best to maintain your job. I know that there's been a movement going on called quiet quitting. It might be a time to maybe question if you really want to quiet quit. This isn't a video to say you should or shouldn't, but this is a video to really just understand what's going on, and that so you guys can make your best decision about what you guys want to do for your particular career. Because the big idea is that if there are so many different layoffs that are going on, it means that if you're currently in part of the quiet quitting movement, it means that you might be the most susceptible to potentially be losing your job. So it might be time to really be able to kind of just be aware of something that's happening. Now, if you're not employed right now at this time, say for example, or if you end up not employed, because again, people are losing their jobs right now every single day by day, the big idea is to really just understand that it's understandable why it's happening. And it's really to just understand is that as difficult as it is, it's just one of those things that's going on. We can't control everything about just life in general. In fact, a huge part of it is actually absolutely out of our control, because what can we possibly do about this situation? It is, of course, a little bit subjective, but the big idea is that because of that reason, it's just to really understand that if there's some struggle involved, is that there's a reason for it. And that also, most of all, millions, there are millions of people unemployed, but so I guess you can say millions. Millions are struggling right now and going through something similar, or will be expected to join in some time in the very, very near future. But of course, what ends up happening, where does the job market go from here, which companies or which further companies now start to employ, we just have to see in hopefully one of the future episodes of The Kevin Show. So with that being said, that's pretty much what I really just wanted to cover in today's video. If you guys found that insightful and haven't done so, maybe remember to smash the like button or leave a comment, suggestions for improvements, if anything, which is okay. Consider subscribing and hitting the bell. And with that being said, thank you guys so much for watching. As always, stay safe, stay well, try to stay employed, but otherwise embrace the unemployment, because there are some, cool things about it. We're gonna put videos at the end, and I hope to see you guys next time. Thank you guys so much again.